Hi there. My name's Brian, KC Backyard Garden Guy, and just a guy in Overland Park in the Kansas City area that started a garden a few years ago and decided he liked it. And I started recording my journey that year and did a halfway decent job halfway through the season, through the postseason, getting things documented and recorded. But last year I had a knee injury, so I wasn't real good at getting anything out last year. This year, I'm going to go ahead and try to do a good job from A to Z. And instead of just TikTok, I'm also going to try to get these videos posted on YouTube as well, because not everybody necessarily uses TikTok. So I don't want to limit the audience. I'm not an expert by any means, but I do have 2 garden seasons under my belt. The first year, I did 13 different tomato varieties. And about 7 different pepper varieties, 3 different pumpkin varieties, a zucchini, a yellow squash, and some corn and basil in marigolds for companion planting. And it went really well. So when I started that season, I had no idea there was more than 20 different varieties of tomatoes. As I started joining Facebook groups, I realized that I had only scratched the surface. So there's actually over 30,000 different varieties of tomatoes, and that number grows every year with hobbyist breeders that are crafty and breed awesome varieties from their own favorite varieties. So last year, by the time I started seeds last year, my seed collection was over 300 varieties of tomatoes. So I grew 127 different varieties of tomatoes, 240 tomato plants in total, and 3 volunteers. So 243 tomato plants last year, and quite a few pepper plants. I didn't keep track of them as much and did some Chinese long beans. That's about all I was able to do because I injured my knee. So I kind of hobbled literally through the garden season last year. I did do some recordings, but I didn't edit and post any. So I don't know, I might do some throwbacks. But I figured I would do an introductory video to introduce you, YouTube viewers, to my garden. Last year, since I knew I was going to go ahead and garden each year from now on, I went ahead and invested in cattle panels. They're only about $30 a piece. They are 50 inches wide and 16 feet long. And I use them in 2 ways. One way you can see right behind me, I'll show you more closely here in a second, bending them and using them as an arch for a trellis for cucumbers or squash or anything else that climbs to grow. So I have 5 arches, and then I also mounted the others on to T-posts to be able to grow tomatoes alongside those. As the tomatoes grow in height, I just use plastic clips to clip the main vine to the cattle panel so it is trained to grow upward. So that's what I did last year. I still have the same setup this year. I'm going to likely add 2 to 3 more panels because I'm going to grow 300 tomato plants this year, 150 varieties. And I'm also still going to grow peppers and cucumbers. I didn't get any zucchini in the ground last year, so I just planted some zucchini as well. So I'll give you a quick tour and likely edit this video way down. I don't know. I might just, I might leave the whole thing up. With YouTube, I don't think I have to worry as much about being too long. So let's give you a tour. Let's have a look. So right now I'm standing inside one of the arches. This is actually arch number 1. The 16-foot cattle panel I mounted with carpenter nails on the side of my garden bed. And then on the other side, about 4 feet away, T-posts. And I just use these cattle panel clips. And I'm 6'3" and I can comfortably walk underneath them. So I have 2 arches here, each one end being in the garden bed and the other end going to the ground. These garden beds I built the first year. They're about 5.5 feet by 9 feet. And I just sowed some cucumber seeds along that panel inside the garden bed and along this panel inside the garden bed. These are silver slicer cucumbers, and those are straight 8s. And then I also sowed some cucumber seeds on this end. And this one I'm not sure how to pronounce. Be It Alpha cucumber from Baker Creek. So I have those. And I'm about ready to put some squash and some zucchini in this arch, because I did that over there. I have zucchini on one side and yellow squash on the other side. And then I have cucumber seed, another variety of cucumbers to put on that end over there. I haven't done this side yet because I still need to top fill this garden bed with some dirt. You can see the level is quite low from 2 years ago. I didn't really use this last year, other than right here on this end growing some cucumbers. So I'm going to top off the garden bed. I just got it cleared out a little bit ago. I'm going to top it off with some premium topsoil / compost. And then I need to decide what to plant. Probably green beans. Some of my pepper plants might also go in there. But let's take a look at those tomato arches. With the T-posts, I started with 8-foot T-posts, and as you can see, I mounted them pretty high off of the ground. And with each 16-foot cattle panel, I'm able to get 20 tomato plants on each side. So that's a total of 40 tomato plants for each cattle panel. This is the first panel that I planted about 3 weeks ago, I believe. And this is cattle panel number 1, cattle panel number 2, cattle panel number 3, cattle panel number 4. And I have marked them with these tags I got off of Amazon at the top. So if I get confused of where I'm at, I can look at these. And I also not only mark the tomato plants with a tag when I sow the seeds, I put that in the ground when I sow them, or when I plant them, but I also use a tag that I attach to the plant itself. That way, as the plant grows taller and they get bigger and wider, it's a little bit easier to keep track of instead of trying to mess around and find the ground tag. So I have 4 panels of tomatoes planted already. These panels here in the middle, panels 5 and 6, last year I had peppers and beans along these. This year I'm likely going to have some dwarf tomatoes on one of these and peppers on the other. Again, this is where I planted the zucchini and the squash. And then these are panels number 7 and 8. These also had tomatoes. Over there I have my compost pile. I relocated it last year to the back fence. That is the compost pile that I started 2 years ago. I'm going to be probably using some of that this year as well, because I'd like to use that area now for planting. I've got a lot more space that I can plant, maybe some corn, maybe some pumpkins again. But as you can see, again, I've mounted these up pretty darn high. And that way, as you can see, again, I'm 6'3". They are pretty high, and a lot of the tomato plants last year not only got to the very tall part, but they started growing down again. So, sorry, I'm not used to doing this view. I'm used to doing the other view. So hopefully I don't have too much of my fingers and hands in the video this time around. So this is the introductory video to my garden season 2025. And I started back in March. I started sowing seeds. I have some seed sowing videos that I grabbed that I will also likely post, just for reference of how I truly did begin from seed, and we'll take you from cradle to grave this garden season. So again, my name's Brian, KC Backyard Garden Guy. Thanks for watching, and Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep up with my garden journey. And, as always, happy gardening!